the bourgeoisie begins in, I believe it's the 17th century, 16th century, in the Burgesses of Germany, where independent artisans, independent shopkeepers, and other very small-time business people, traders, people who, started markets, went to market, had shops, etc. The smallest scale entrepreneurs began to distinguish themselves in their villages, right, to become powerful. They became powerful through the economic power of their businesses. Right? And these shopkeepers, these proto-capitalists in the Burgesses became the bourgeoisie, which was the merchant class. Not aristocratic, not, as they say, noble-born, but becoming richer throughout the modern period, from the 16th, 17th century onward, right? Growing in wealth, growing in power. And it was Marx, and many historians agree, really the influence and power and desire of the bourgeoisie that brought the French Revolution about. Who truly revolted against the French monarchy? It was the peasants who fought and died, and certainly plenty of the bourgeois also fought and died. But peasants fought and died. But the true rebels in France were the merchant class, who had become wealthy enough to be in competition with, to compare themselves to the aristocracy, and could have the influence and the means, the funds, to organize and carry out a revolution. Right? So the revolution was the bourgeoisie against the monarchy. This is interesting, in fact, because there were attempts on the part of the monarchy to band together with the peasantry against the bourgeoisie, against the merchant class. Right? This is something that will happen. Right? The elite will join forces with the most minimized in society, the poorest, in order to fight against the bourgeois middle class. Right? Now, given that it was the bourgeoisie that truly rebelled against the monarchy, it was the bourgeoisie that stood to gain the most after the revolution. And their goal was not, in fact, the democracy, égalité, fraternité, liberté, égalité, fraternité, the French motto of the revolution. Right? It wasn't universalism. It wasn't equality. It was becoming the new ruling class. And the way that they were able to hold on to a class structure was through capitalism. Right? The monarchy was deposed. they stepped into power through the installation of capitalism. How so? And here is where we get to the second part of the second question, right, which is, in what sense is capitalism only a false mirror of democracy, or are the similarities not so strong? Well, right, in capitalism, it takes money to make money, as they say, right? In order to get rich, you have to spend some money to invest in your business in order for your business to turn a profit. Now, what that means, very simply put, is that the rich are, from the get-go, miles ahead in a capitalist system than the poor. The idea that it is a level playing field, or ever was, is absurd. Because the monarchy and aristocracy had been deposed, beheaded, exiled, what have you, their funds appropriated, didn't mean that there weren't other class distinctions in France. And this merchant class, the bourgeois class, was infinitely wealthier than the peasantry. And using that wealth, they immediately bought up or took control of what Marx calls the means of production. The ability to produce products, and therefore the ability to produce profit. Meanwhile, the peasantry, while they had gained some measure of political agency, became the working class, right? They gained less, obviously, than the bourgeoisie, the proletariat. So let's then think about, okay, so to conclude this thought, capitalism is not democratic because not everyone gets the same amount of power. In a democracy, there is universality. In capitalism, there is necessarily exclusion, hierarchy, and disenfranchisement. Again, to put this very simply, what's the idea of capitalism? Let's give a positive interpretation of capitalism. Capitalism is a competition. The goal of capitalism is to produce the highest quality product at the lowest possible cost, the lowest possible price. So in theory, you will have the greatest amount of innovation, the greatest amount of efficiency, and the greatest amount of profitability. You'll also have a constant um, stream of new businesses and therefore a wealth of jobs. Now, that's all well and good, right? And I think that there are merits to those arguments for capitalism. However, capitalism is also, according to all of those points, according to that definition, is a competition where the person, the company that is able to make the highest quality product at the lowest possible price is going to win. And in every competition, obviously, there are winners and losers. And what that means is that built into the structure of capitalism, meaning that it is impossible to have a purely capitalist system without some amount of unemployment. Unemployment and poverty are a structural necessity for capitalism. There have to be winners and losers. So let's pause there, and I will regroup, and we'll come back and approach this from a different angle and hopefully get into the texts a little bit more. But that's my sort of historical introduction.